Hello, my name is Daniel, and this is the Engineering Success Podcast, episode 22. Gathering here to engineer a successful career. Yep, that's what we're doing. I just came up with that totally. It's not a cliche thing that I am saying. All right, so let's start off the episode. First, let's start out with our shout-outs. Shout out to John Ott. He is our top tier subscriber. You can join John Ott and get a shout out at the beginning of every single episode of the Engineering Success Podcast for a generous donation of $10 a month. Check the link in the description of the episode to support either via Anchor or on Patreon. $5 a month gets you a shout out in the first episode of each month, and $10 a month gets you a shout out in every single episode of the Engineering Success Podcast. You can write in your questions to engring.success@gmail.com, and I will respond to your questions on the podcast. Remember to give a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, all of your podcast providers. And if you give me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, I will read out the review if it is appropriate on the podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, and I'll also give the next subscribers that subscribe up to 100 subscribers, that's what we're trying to get to, I will give them a shout out at the beginning of the next couple episodes of the podcast. All right, we have a successful recurring segment. So I am just gonna go right into it this week in LinkedIn Lunatics. Now we have a few of them this week. The first one is titled, "Wow, it's so inspiring that you can't afford to feed yourself." All right, so here it is. This was posted by you, Moi, and the quote is, "Wow, it's so inspiring that you can't afford to feed yourself." And this lovely gentleman here says, quote, "You lost 15 pounds in 2 weeks?" I asked my friend. "Yup. How'd you do it?" "Well, with grocery store prices so high, I can't afford as much food." Wow, what an amazing strategy. I'm inspired. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom out there right now, but it's worth remembering that there are some bright spots resulting from this economic downturn. Thank you, economy, exclamation point. And this person commented, "It's all about the reframing." Okay, I get the concept of reframing. However, come on, man. Like, okay, first of all, you're insinuating that losing 15 pounds in 2 weeks is a good thing. I'm not a dietitian, but I wouldn't say that losing a large amount of weight in a really short amount of time is always a good thing. In fact, losing weight is not always a good thing. What if this person is malnourished? It's just, I don't think that's a very healthy way to look at things in general. And yeah, it's not a good thing that grocery store prices are so high. I mean, I get wanting to look at things positively, but this really sucks. Not fun. Not good. And yeah, it is worth reframing things. But at the same time, this is just not a good example of reframing, in my opinion. It's kind of ridiculous, if you ask me. Thank you, economy. No, it's kind of a lunatic thing to be thankful that the economy is going down, because there are people that actually can't afford any food, not just can't afford less food, can't afford any food. We have this baby formula shortage going on and all that. So I just think it's, at best, a little bit, what's the word for it? Out of touch. A little bit out of touch, and at worst, offensive. So, this week's first LinkedIn lunatic is this guy right here. All right, next LinkedIn lunatic. We have 4 of them. Actually, we have 5. It's my favorite part of this podcast. We might just turn this into a LinkedIn lunatic podcast. I don't know. We'll see. All right, this one is not a lunatic. He's calling out the lunatics. Andrew out here calling out the nonsense. Here is the post. "My 4-year-old froze on stage at her first ballet recital. I failed," she told me after the show. I looked at her heartbroken. with tears in my eyes. No, I failed you. But today, you've given me more than I could have ever asked for. You gave me a sad kid story to post on LinkedIn. Link what? She asked. LinkedIn, I replied. A place where depressing personal anecdotes involving imaginary children are posted and mined for engagements in order to boost one's own professional identity. She looked at me confused. But Dad, I cut her off. Shh. Shh. I thought to myself, it was all worth it. The exorbitant amount of money I spent on ballet classes, the exorbitant amount of money I spent on the recital costume, the exorbitant amount of money I spent on a thesaurus to find another word for the word exorbitant. Thank you, I told her. She smiled, did a pirouette, and vanished like a fart in the wind. Hashtag sad dad, hashtag real kid, hashtag truth, hashtag tutu. And I just, yeah. I don't personally like the concept of exploiting your children for professional engagement on any form of social media. Like the people that embarrass their kids, even on Facebook. I mean, not even just LinkedIn, but even on Facebook or Vine or TikTok or Twitter. I mean, I think that is ridiculous, and I don't think that's very kind parenting to try to go become famous and make content out of trying to embarrass your child. You're going to cause emotional damage to that child, or they're going to become, maybe the arguments will become stronger because of you or to spite you. But like, why would you do that? Like, that's just not a healthy way to build up children, in my opinion. So I really appreciate this guy. His name is Andrew Tobin, and I guess he's also a no, just kidding. He says he's an award-losing creative director at theandrewtobin.com. I guess he might even be a little bit of an influencer on LinkedIn himself, but maybe not. But it's just... And the saddest part about it is that you look up these stories, right? And they're fake half the time. And then you go search the story, if you just search on LinkedIn, again, it'll be like 400 people posting the exact same story, just trying to get engagement. And it's just like, LinkedIn is like this professional network. It's like, it's a way to network into jobs and to connect with people that are working in your field and get news and stuff like that. And it's just really sad to me that it's kind of devolved into what it is now, which is why I have this segment recurring on the podcast, to expose and just to kind of point out the things that are annoying about LinkedIn. Because I don't know, maybe if we have more people shouting out these people for their nonsense, like Mr. Andrew Tobin, shouting out people for their nonsense, then maybe it'll happen less. I don't know. Everybody wants to be an influencer nowadays, and I mean, then again, here I am on a podcast influencing or trying to influence, but so I guess I'm a little bit hypocritical for that. But like, it's just, I think there's ways to go about doing it, and either making up fake stories and copying other people's stories on LinkedIn, or trying to profit off of your child and embarrassing your child. It's just not those are not the ways to do it, in my opinion. So, all right. Next one is titled, Lunatic Blogger Drinks Water and Posts on LinkedIn First Before Checking on Pregnant Wife. All right, so this guy, he's an Aussie blogger apparently. And here's his morning routine before work. 6 a.m., wake up. Okay. 6:15 a.m., drink water. Okay, reasonable. 6:30 a.m., post on LinkedIn. Okay. 6:35, make sure my pregnant wife is okay. Oh. I guess maybe she's not awake by then. But dude, if this girl is awake by then and you... I'm sorry, I have to get a drink of water. This is... Also, this kind of post belongs on a blog. LinkedIn, I guess some people are treating LinkedIn as a blog. Well, I guess if he's a blogger and blogging his career, I guess he can treat LinkedIn as a blog. I guess. I don't know. Let's Google this. What is... Let's ask Siri. Hey Siri, what is LinkedIn for?
Here's what I found from commonsensemedia.org. LinkedIn is a social networking website that allows users to organize employment and educational information on a resume-like page, then share with potential contacts in the job world.
Okay, so that's from commonsensemedia.org. Let's go to linkedin.com. LinkedIn mission statement. LinkedIn's mission statement is, their vision is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. So I guess these people are consistent with the vision. They're using LinkedIn to become influencers and increase their vision. And their mission is connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. Okay. I'm not saying that's not for bloggers, but, and I guess he's also a sales professional, but this kind of post is just like a blog. But maybe there was like a trend going on where people were like talking about the best morning routine isn't perfect. It's whatever works for you. Share your morning routine. I think that's a good thing to do, but man, like, get your priorities straight. Unless your wife is not awake by then, come on, check on your wife first. That's the first thing you do. And checking on her doesn't even mean waking her up, you know? Maybe wake up and just look and see how she's doing. Maybe that's the first thing that you do when you wake up, bud. You can even do it while you're drinking your water. But, okay, this is not like the biggest LinkedIn lunatic, but this is still annoying. All right, next LinkedIn lunatic. Okay, this one is funny. So this one's I'm lost for words. So I'm going to take off this one for a second. Every, 3 months, I feel like somebody tries to make this same post, and I can't tell if they are copying it and they're being stupid. So they're both copying and being stupid, or if they're individually coming up with this ridiculous idea. So, here's the post. And before I read the post, and maybe you've already seen it on the video, but think to yourself, what is the one thing that people, like entrepreneur media and entrepreneur LinkedIn culture, entrepreneur Twitter influencers, what is the one thing that they reinvent, or they claim that they've invented every 3 months? And if you're thinking what I'm thinking, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the library. Yes. So this post, the person who shared it says, I'm at a loss for words, and I am too. So somebody posted on Twitter or LinkedIn and captioned it, try library, bro. So let's look at this guy. I think if the bookstore allows a rental model or monthly payment for some of the high-priced books and recreates a sitting area so that buyers can sit down to ignite interest as they are checking the book, is worth buying perhaps, will be another attractive differentiative factor for intrigued by passers. When I was a kid, I often volunteered to go to the MPH, a bookstore, while my parents went shopping. They have a tremendous comic books collection that I very much enjoyed reading with a bunch of other kids. They didn't wrap the books back then. We'll sit down on the floor or a small empty table. As we grow, our book of choice changes too. And the price, as when we were kids, is still very pricey given our economic state. More time is required for us to evaluate which books we want to invest our money into, as most of it is. Okay, so maybe this is like an American thing. Are there not libraries anywhere else in the world? I mean, maybe there aren't. I mean, I know we have Andrew Carnegie. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. Do most countries have libraries?
Okay, I found this on the web for do most countries have libraries. Check it out.
According to Wikipedia, public libraries exist in many countries across the world and are often considered an essential part of having an educated and literate population. Public libraries are distinct from research libraries, school libraries, and other special libraries in that their mandate is to serve the general public's information needs rather than the needs of a particular school, institution, or research population. Public libraries typically allow users to borrow books and other materials, i.e., take off the premises temporarily. They also have non-circulating reference collections and provide computer and internet access to patrons. History. Historian Yahya Ibn al-Antaki, death 1066, reported that the Fatimid Caliph Al-Hakim B. Amr Allah financed and established libraries open to the public where anyone, even the simple layman, could choose whatever books they wanted and have them copied for them by public scribes free of charge. Italy has a library, or one of the first libraries. England. So most established countries have libraries. Yet, I feel like every single time I go on LinkedIn, I see another person inventing the library again. So, unless libraries are just like not a thing where this guy is from, this is insane. And yeah, subscription models already exist for books. Like you can rent books. But this is like checking the book out, which is how you borrow a book at a library. And like, you know, I'm at a loss for words for the number of people that keep on thinking that they're the genius that's going to invent a library. So, okay. Next one. Okay, so this one's relevant to me. This one hits home. So, as many of you guys know, or many of you guys don't know, I get married in just under a month, actually. Hey Siri, how many more days till June 18th?
It's 28 days until then.
So I get married in exactly 4 weeks, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, duh. It's a Saturday. I should have been able to do the math. And I'm taking off the day before my wedding. I'm going on a honeymoon the week after my wedding. And I'm getting married on the day of my wedding. And I have made it pretty clear to everybody that I work with that it's going to be very difficult to reach me. In fact, impossible to reach me on my wedding day, duh, because it's a Saturday. The day before my wedding, I will not be responding to anything unless it's an absolute emergency. Same for my honeymoon. Don't talk to me on my honeymoon. I might obviously have to review a couple things here and there, but no, I'm not going to be working on my honeymoon. So, this person felt the need to brag on LinkedIn that they did this. Not their honeymoon, not the day before their wedding, their wedding day. Lunatic works on her wedding day. Client over husband. This is not something to be proud of. Look at all this. 5,600 people cheering on the fact that this woman worked on her wedding day. Okay, we get one of those. If we do it right, we get one of those. Some people don't get any of them. Some people get more than one, but ideally, everybody gets one wedding day. And the people that are coming to support you for your wedding, the money, the time and energy that goes into planning the wedding, I can't imagine, first of all, asking somebody to work on their wedding day, and second of all, putting myself in a situation where I needed to work on a wedding day or was willing to work on my wedding day. I mean, like, write in what would have to happen on your wedding day for you to have to stop focusing on your wedding and work and do your job. Right in. And no, it can't be some fictional job. Your actual job. If you can think of any reason why you would want to work on your wedding day, let me know. And if you've worked on your wedding day, let me know. Right into the podcast. I'll read it out, because this is just crazy. I mean, no, this is just insane. So yes, this is another LinkedIn lunatic. Shout out to you. That's absolutely insane. All right. Well, that was the LinkedIn Lunatics section of the podcast. That was 20 minutes of LinkedIn Lunatics. You're welcome, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that part of the podcast. We're going to take a quick little ad break, and we'll come back with the Q&A section. Bye. All right, guys. Before we get into the rest of the podcast, I just realized I made a mistake. I finished recording all the audio for the podcast, and I realized that I forgot to do two important things. First of which, I want to give a major shout out to the Tequila Time podcast. It's hosted by a buddy of mine named Marius. They are also hosted on Anchor, and they are a weekly podcast fusion of tech, entertainment, business, travel, and more, and tequila, of course. Dive right in as your hosts, Kellen and Marius, explore relevant topics to the business world and beyond. You join them in their travels around the world, learn about new technology and the newest Silicon Valley trends, hear interviews with special guests, possessing unparalleled knowledge within their disciplines. Definitely make sure to check out the Tequila Time podcast. They are friends of the Engineering Success podcast, and I appreciate Kellen and Marius for their support of the Engineering Success podcast. Also, on the last episode, we had an audience question. That question came from John, and he was asking about how to get caught up on mechanical engineering concepts with somebody having his background in civil engineering in his new role as a project manager. And we actually had somebody write into the pod, and I, forgot to include that in the original recording of the podcast, so here we go. Here's what they wrote in. So they said, when I saw your video, so yes, they saw it on YouTube, when I saw your video titled, I'm a new project manager, how do I get caught up on mechanical engineering concepts, I thought that maybe I could offer some insight. And I'm guessing that Luke's background is mechanical engineering. Well, I know that, actually. Anyways, first off, this is Luke. As a PM, I'm assuming that it is a construction or design-related role, and that your responsibility is not to be a subject matter expert, SME, of the technical aspects of things. In this case, the mechanical systems that you are installing or designing, so don't feel underqualified for the role or like you are out of your element. Most PMs, project managers, are primarily responsible for managing the contract, finances, meeting project deadlines, and ensuring that a quality product is provided to your client. So not being a technical expert should not be debilitating. However, it will be helpful to begin to learn and understand the mechanical concepts for understanding work in place, WIP, and helping with project delivery. When you start out, rely on your support staff and other people associated with the project that would bring the technical expertise to the project. This would be design engineers, field engineers, and the superintendents or field operations personnel that are running the jobs, foremen, welders, pipe fitters, HVAC installers, etc. As you get exposure to more mechanical projects, the concepts will begin to make more sense. However, there is a YouTube channel that covers some mechanical concepts which can be helpful for you. It's a channel that was created and is managed by a tenured professor at Louisiana Tech University, and he covers material taught in the mechanical engineering program at Louisiana Tech. The channel name is TheBomb_PE, and he does a great job covering a wide array of mechanical concepts. The channel is called TheBomb_PE. I hope that helps out, and I wish you the best of luck, John. Well, thank you, Luke, for writing into the podcast. I think that that's a wonderful response. You and I were kind of aligned. We both said that rely on the SMEs, and I think that the other side benefit of relying on the SMEs is that they'll become to like John even more, because he obviously relies on them and respects them and values their opinion, and they'll value working with John even more. So I think that's a great bit of advice, and shout out to you, Luke, for coming up with a good YouTube channel resource. Anybody else have some more advice from John, make sure to write into the podcast at engring.success@gmail.com, and I'll make sure to read your responses. If you have any questions, again, write into that email address, and I will try to address them on the pod. All right, back to the rest of the pod. You might hear a weird transition that welcomes you back from an ad, but, well, I'm lazy, so check out the other side. All right.
Hey guys, I want to tell you about a new podcast called Tequila Time. The Tequila Time podcast is a weekly podcast of fusion of tech, entertainment, business, travel, and more. And of tequila, of course. Dive right in as your hosts, Kellen and Marius, explore relevant topics to the business world and beyond. Join them in their travels around the world and learn about how new technology and the newest Silicon Valley trends. Hear their interviews with special guests possessing unparalleled knowledge within their disciplines. You can find them on anchor.fm/tequila time and on Instagram as the Tequila Time Podcast.
Well, welcome back. I hope you got a fun little ad there. Let's go into the question segment of the podcast. Not too many of them today since we spent a long time doing LinkedIn lunatics. Here's the first one. This is from R Civil Engineering and it's titled Engineer's Ring. Even though I'm continuing on to my master's, I've completed all my undergrad requirements and I will be receiving my bachelor's degree in a few weeks. And as a result, I am eligible to be inducted into the Order of the Engineer. There are some older threads on other engineering subreddits that have talked about this in years past, but I'm curious for civil engineering specifically if you or anyone you know actually wears the ring day to day. Double wears there. One of my professors wears his religiously, but I didn't pay attention for or even know about the ring last summer during my internship. So I would love to hear what you all have to say. So I will say, not a civil engineer, but I know I work with a lot of civil engineers, and I'd say that a decent number of them wear them, but I'd say probably more of them that don't wear them than do wear them. But as you may know, the history is there was a bridge that collapsed, and there was the iron of the bridge that they took, and they made the first set of rings. And the Order of the Engineer, their motto is, I should have prepared this. So the Order of the Engineer, their obligation is, I am an engineer. In my profession, I take deep pride. To it, I owe solemn obligations. As an engineer, I pledge to practice integrity and fair dealing, tolerance and respect, and to uphold devotion to the standards and the dignity of my profession, conscious always that my skill carries with it the obligation to serve humanity by making the best use of Earth's precious wealth. As an engineer, I shall participate in none but honest enterprises. When needed, my skill and knowledge shall be given without reservation for the public good. In the performance of the duty and fidelity to my profession, I shall give my utmost. So I actually, I wear mine, and I just think it's a good thing to wear. I don't have it on me right now, so I know that's ironic that I said I wear mine, but I do wear mine pretty religiously. And I have the order and my signature on the order framed in my office, and people ask me about it every once in a while. I'd say, it's not expensive. It's like $20 for the ring, I think, is all it costs, and there's no annual fees or anything like that. So I would say, especially if your school subsidizes it, and even if they don't, it's $20. I would recommend joining the order. I think that my school did a cool ceremony for it. I think most schools do. I would recommend wearing it. It really doesn't hurt, and if for anything, it's a fun conversation starter when you're out in public and people are like, "Why are you wearing a pinky ring?" Because it goes on the pinky of your working hand. But yeah, I knew about it. We have a big old link. Every university has their own link in the order, and we had a big one on display in our engineering school. So I kind of knew what it was because I asked about it at one point when I was going to school. And yeah, I'd say it doesn't hurt to join, and is it going to change your career? No, but the motto is, the obligation of the Order of the Engineer is a good one, I think. So it definitely doesn't hurt to participate, and I would encourage it. It was a fun thing for me and my friends to participate in, and it's a good thing to go by, and whenever people ask about it, I point to the obligation. All right. Next question. So this is from our Ask Engineers. Sorry, no, this is also civil engineering. They say, as a high school student, could I maybe get an example as to what I would be doing work-wise in college my first year? Like simply just courses or other stuff, excluding gen ed classes. So I will say it kind of depends on what school you go to, but this is probably going to be it. You're going to likely take some form of calculus. So if you've already taken through Calc 1 or through Calc 2 in high school, then you start with Calc 3. And if you've already taken through Calc 3, then maybe you'll start in a stats class or a differential equations class. But most people are starting either at Calc 1, Calc 2, or Calc 3. And then if you haven't tested out of physics yet, so if you didn't get college credit for physics, then you'll likely take an introduction to physics mechanics class in your first semester of college. And so there's two physics. There's physics for mechanics and then physics for electricity and magnetism. So mechanics is how things move or don't move. So you'll take that. And then you'll probably take a lab class for that physics class. And then you might take an intro to CAD class or an intro to general engineering class as well. But those will be your main engineering courses you take in your first semester as a college student. And then in your second semester, because you asked first year, then you take the second half of physics, electricity and magnetism. And then it kind of depends on what major you're going into. Civil engineering, you might still take a mechanics of engineering class. You might take that. But let's go to University of Texas Civil Engineering degree plan. So what you can do is you can search the school that you're going to and search the engineering program that you're interested in and search their degree program. And what you'll find is they have a really good, they'll have it spelled out pretty clearly for you exactly what classes you need to take to graduate throughout all 4 years. And so let's find civil engineering flowchart. Is this it? Okay. So first fall at UT Austin, if you're a civil engineer, you'll take differential and integral calculus, so that's the beginning of calculus. You'll take principles of chemistry. I didn't mention that earlier. I actually didn't take chemistry until my sophomore year, but civil engineering systems, so an intro to civil engineering. And then you'll take a rhetoric and writing and a first year signature course. That's your gen ed. And then your spring, you'll take sequence, series, and multivariable calculus, so that's Calc 2. And then principles of chemistry 2, so your second chemistry class. Engineering physics 1, so that's your mechanics. And then engineering physics 1 lab, like I mentioned. And then you'll take a CAD class. So that's what you do at your first year. So every single university that in the US and most other schools around the world, they'll have a flow chart or a degree plan or something like that to tell you what you can kind of plan for. And the cool thing about that is then you can look at that and say, all right, well, what classes do I don't have to take because I have credits for, and then you can kind of take more electives and or maybe speed up some of the gen ed stuff your freshman year because you're gonna still need to get a bunch of prereqs. So depending on, unless you're advanced in your prereqs, the progression of like when you take the engineering classes is most likely going to be the same because you can't skip and you can't take thermodynamics before you take mechanics or dynamics or something like that, that kind of thing. But if you go to your university's flowchart, they'll do a good job of spelling that out for you. So I wish you the best of luck. It's very exciting that you're going into your first year of engineering, and that's a good resource that you can use. All right, next question. This is our woman engineers. I had a coworker put me down several times during a meeting, so I asked him to leave. I, 29 female, am very new to engineering. I'm at my first job and I've been there for about 3.5 months, so I am very new. A lot of my questions may seem dumb to people, but I'm fresh out of college, so I literally feel like I know nothing. Throughout a meeting I was in, I had a coworker continually put me down along with my work on the project. Finally, he made a comment to me about how C's get degrees. I've had enough, so I asked him to leave, and surprisingly he did. Obviously, none of the other people in my meeting, all men, said anything, and they just moved on. I was furious and trying not to cry, but I made it through the meeting and talked to HR today about it. I hope these dinosaurs retire soon because I am only 3 months into this career and it's exhausting having to deal with this, but also the feeling of not getting any backup. So first, I want to say that I think that was a pretty good response, asking him to leave. You are 3.5 months into the work, and really people should understand that and know that if they're in a meeting evaluating your presentation or your work or commenting, if they're in a position where they can comment on your work, then they should know that you've been there for only 3.5 months and you are new and you're learning, and they should treat you with that level of respect to know that, hey, you're not going to have everything right the first time. So as long as your effort is there and you're trying and you're asking good questions, then it makes a lot of sense that you should be able to. You shouldn't be in a position where somebody says that to you, especially the comment "C's get degrees." That's just it's the ad hominem attack of insulting your intelligence is just inappropriate, and I think that it's appropriate that you took it to HR. I mean, I would have taken it to your manager first instead of just jumping towards HR. I don't know what the organization of your company is, but I would have maybe taken it to my manager and have it documented with HR. I mean, I wouldn't have handled it very much differently. So, really good job about that. But here's a couple questions I have, and the first one is, I'm curious what industry you work in, and I know you said that you said you hope that these dinosaurs retire soon because I'm only 3 months into this career and it's exhausting having to deal with this, but also the feeling of not getting any backup. So it sounds like you might not be in a work culture that's good for you, and you might need to maybe look at working somewhere else, because that's not the norm in my experience from talking to women that I know that work for respectable engineering companies. They are treated like professionals, they're treated like adults, they're treated as equals. And if you really believe that you're being treated this way because you're a woman especially, then, and even in general, like, you just shouldn't treat new people this way. But I would kind of start looking for elsewhere. And then the other thing you mentioned is, like, a lot of my questions may seem dumb to people, but I'm fresh out of college, so I literally feel like I know nothing. I would ask, just to make sure, what kind of questions are you asking? I think that it's really good to ask a lot of questions, and you should be asking questions, and some of your questions may seem dumb to people. The only thing I think about is, are you asking the same question more than once? Are you asking the same questions over and over again? If you are, then maybe there's some evaluation that you need to have on yourself to make sure that you're taking really good notes and you're limiting the number of repeated questions you ask. The second thing I want to ask you is, you say you feel like you literally know nothing. So the question is remember, you are an engineer. You have your degree. So the question is are you taking the time to put effort in and critically try to solve problems before you ask the questions? Whenever you're asking questions, you're saying, hey, I looked into this, I tried this, but I wasn't able to get there because I got stuck here and I got stuck here. Can you help me get over this gap? If those are the kind of questions you're asking, then there's no reason for people to be treating you the way that you've described that you treated them. But those are the biggest points of feedback that I personally got when I first started working, was like, stop asking the same questions over and over again, and at least come to me with what you've tried to do to this point before coming and asking me a question. Because if you haven't even made an attempt, or I'm constantly answering the same questions over and over again, I am going to get frustrated. So, I don't know any of these things, and I'm not saying that that's who you are and what you're experiencing, but I'm just asking these questions because I just want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for as much success. So do some self-evaluation. I'm hoping that you have some kind of manager that gives you some kind of backup. Are any of these people that were in that meeting your manager? Again, I would talk to that person, ask them for feedback. What kind of questions am I asking? Am I asking good questions? Do you think I'm doing my part to try to solve problems as an engineer before bringing questions to you? And get some feedback from that manager, and then also work with them on the relationship building and the HR thing. But if you're in a position where you can't get that support from your manager and you do not feel like you have a future with this company, go ahead and start looking elsewhere. But yeah, that's just kind of what I would do. Is, I mean, it sounds like you're really frustrated and you have a little bit of animosity towards these people, and it may be completely righteous. I don't know that, but, and I'm assuming that, and I'm going to start from the position that you are completely righteous, but I just want to ask these questions to encourage you to think about these things, just to make sure that you didn't have anything to play with it. But anyways, again, I'm a guy responding to a question on our women engineers, so maybe I'm giving terrible advice. I invite especially the woman, but anybody in the comments to chime in. But I was hoping to just provide some general advice that's not necessarily just applicable to this person being a woman. But guys, write in. Let me know if I stepped up, got this wrong here. But let me know, and let me know how you would react in this situation. All right. Next question is in our Ask Engineers. Is it worth doing this 32 hours long course on computational fluid dynamics for roughly $700 US? Does that increase my chances of being hired? I'm graduating in metallurgical engineering later this year with some nuclear emphasis. So, this is a good one. This person is trying to get their first job out of college, and they want to get a course on computational fluid dynamics. I'm surprised that isn't a course that's covered in their university curriculum. But does that particular course increase their chances of being hired? I'm graduating in metallurgical engineering later this year with some nuclear emphasis. So, computational fluid dynamics for metallurgy. So, apparently, computational fluid dynamics is very valuable for analyzing and designing metallurgical processes. So why wasn't that covered in your undergrad? Okay, so it sounds like this is more of like a supplementary course. Here's what I'd say. If you're trying to get your first job, I would be focusing on one, graduating with my degree, because that tells people that I am an engineer that knows metallurgy and has the potential to learn how to become a metallurgical engineer for a company. So focus on the degree and finish and graduate with that. Then, after you graduate that, while you're trying to focus on that, the next thing you need to focus on is getting hired. So these 32 hours and this $700 are 32 hours and $700 that you're not putting towards getting hired directly. I would spend some time networking and applying for jobs instead of spending this time and money on this. Maybe you do a professional resume analysis, but you go to a university, so maybe go to the university and do that for free. If I'm a hiring manager and I see that you have this course on your resume, is that the thing that pushes me over the edge to hire you? Probably not. What pushes me over the edge to hire you is that your resume, you have the degree in metallurgy, so yeah, you can do metallurgy, or you can learn, I can teach you how to become a metallurgical engineer for my company. And then the other thing I'm going to look at is, how do you interview? What other things have you done on your resume? Those are the other things I'm going to look at. So, do you have an internship? Have you demonstrated that you've worked before and you can work in a professional environment, that you can learn in a professional environment, and you can function as part of a team professionally? And then, when I bring you into interview, are you the type of person that has a communication style that can be effective within the context of my team? Can I teach you? Can you communicate with the people that I want you to work with? Will you try to solve the problems instead of giving up on the first instinct? What will you do, and how do you communicate that in your interview whenever you're a part of this team? So it sounds like you're just trying to get a job, and instead of spending much money and time on a specialized computational fluid dynamics course that in some kind of software that you might not even use in industry, I would focus on just trying to find a job and not really press on that kind of thing. I mean, may it like stand out a little bit on a resume? It's just going to be another line on your resume, but it won't be the thing that puts you over the edge, in my opinion. And you may not even use it, and it might take away time from you being able to network and try to find the job that you want to find. Because the reality is that engineering consulting company is not going to expect you to come in and know how to do the exact computational fluid design modeling as an entry-level employee that they need done for their company. They're not going to have you do that. Not a reputable company. No, they're going to have somebody that's experienced, that's done it before, teaching you how to do it the way that they want it done, and this is following the systems and the procedures and the codes and standards that they follow. And yeah, maybe having done this course will make it a little bit quicker for you to pick it up, but you're still going to be taught how to do the things that you need to do once you start working for that company. So, focus on graduating on time, focus on networking and going to career fairs and going, maybe spend $700 on flying to the SWE fair or the NISBE fair or like a really, really good college student career fair, so you can get a bunch of interviews. That's where I'd focus my money and my energy on, is just networking and trying to get a job. So I wish you the best of luck. I think that somebody that would even consider doing this is the kind of person that I would want to have on my team, somebody willing to invest in themselves in this way above and beyond just trying to get a job. That's the kind of person that I want on my team. So I wish you the best of luck. I'm sure you'll end up in a great spot, and I look forward to hearing the update on where you land. All right. This next question is on r/CS career questions. So computer science career questions. The question is titled, I discovered that my source of stress is actually because of my manager. How to proceed? At my job, every time we had a bad time because of the sheer amount of requests, project deadlines, and extra development, our manager would say that it was because of the execs demanding so many things. These last weeks, he had been on leave, and I had asked to talk directly to the execs and stakeholders, and despite I was expecting to receive lots of heat, now that I don't have a manager shielding our team, it has actually been the reverse. They are chill, understanding, and don't enforce hard deadlines as I'm used to have in this job. Talking to my work colleagues, they are feeling the same, less stressed and equally capable of delivering results, making the higher-ups happy. So after this, I'm a bit bummed, because this means that the manager is the one responsible for the high workload we have, possibly. I suppose the manager is responsible for protecting us from an excess of demands from the execs, but it seems like he's overpromising all the time, and that's a source of problems on its own. How would you proceed in this situation? He will come back at the end of next week, and we dread having to overburden ourselves with over 9,000 projects at the same time again. Okay. So let's start by asking a couple of questions, and then we'll assume that everything you said is accurate. The first thing is, have you considered that maybe it was a slow 3 weeks? Okay, maybe it wasn't. Okay, so, just think about that. Next thing is, these execs, is there a chance that they were just taking it easy because they knew your manager was out? Or do you know for a fact that they actually have less requests and are more understanding? Have you asked them, that? I guess you have, but okay. So assuming all those things are accurate, that the manager is overpromising all the time and that's a source of problems on its own, I would proceed by maybe whenever you have your manager back, if you do one-on-ones, and if you don't, you should be doing one-on-ones, say, hey, while you were gone, we noticed that our workload went down significantly. And, we've been working really hard and working, I assume that if you've been working overtime, then if you have been working overtime, say, hey, whenever you're here, we're working overtime and working super hard and we're all super stressed. But when you're gone, our workload dropped significantly and our workload felt really reasonable. Can we have a conversation about, maybe having a more reasonable workload moving forward? I don't think that's the worst thing to ask because, this manager is probably, yes, trying to get as much out of you guys as possible to make themselves look good. So yeah, I would just be honest with your manager and just let them know that the workload that you've had is kind of going to lead to burnout and that you'd benefit from a slightly reduced workload. And, as long as it's not coming from, you can convey it in a way that's like it's not coming from being lazy and that, we don't need to be working overtime for no reason, then I think that will be pretty successful. So I wish you the best of luck with that conversation. If the manager isn't super receptive about it, then maybe if you've developed some good relationships with these execs, maybe, just continue. Not saying go over their head, but, continue having conversations with these execs and kind of confirm what you understand is that, the workload that y'all put out is what they're expecting and maybe communicate it to your manager like, hey, I've talked to these guys and the workload that we put out, that's what they seem to expect. So if there's an expectation discrepancy, then I really encourage you talking to them and then I wouldn't recommend immediately going over their head, but if they're just super not receptive, then maybe it's not a bad idea to continue to give that feedback in your one-on-ones and then maybe pass that along up above them. But, that's middle management. I'm assuming that they're strongly incentivized as their manager to squeeze as much out of you guys as possible. But communicating that the squeezing that they're doing is unsustainable might be the best path forward. That's what I would say. All right. Next question. This question is on our Ask Engineers. Firms that provide housing? Does anyone work for or know of civil engineering firms that provide housing or at least contributes to the cost? So, most of the people responded to this question and they said, dude, they'll pay for your housing with your salary. And yeah, that's true. Okay, but these people, depends on what kind of civil engineering you want to do. So, if you're willing to work for a construction firm, you can be a field engineer, or you can do tons of other things with your civil engineering degree. You can do tons of things other than just a civil field engineer. But if you are willing to be assigned to a remote location or just a different location than when you're based, then a lot of construction companies and EPC firms, engineering, procurement, construction firms, will provide what's called per diem or TLA. Per diem stands for per day, and TLA stands for travel, leave, assignment, or something like that. And what that is like a certain amount of dollars per day, and this is negotiated into your contract whenever you sign on with that position, but it's a certain number of dollars per day that you receive for food and housing allowance, and you'll receive it as like an addition onto your check, or so whenever you get paid, or sometimes they'll pay it out once a month or once every other week. It just depends on what the terms of the agreement is, and it's an amount of money for housing, and that can range from like $80 a day to $100 a day to more than that. It kind of just depends on what the agreement is that company has set with the customer that they're building the facility for. But yeah, there are firms that provide housing, and they call it per diem or TLA. So I'm going to disagree with everyone else and say that yes, there are civil engineering firms that provide housing beyond just your salary. And I almost forgot. Some places are so remote that they'll actually build what they call worker camps, and it's like basically dorms or like mini hotels for people to live at while they're working on these facilities. So yeah, there are firms that provide housing. That's actually a thing. So if you want to work in that industry, you might have to live somewhere remote, but that's a way to get your housing paid for on top of your salary. So, all right, last question. As an EE, what pays better, consulting or tech? I wonder about both the US and Canada. It may be different between the two. By consulting, I mean working for an engineering firm that designs electrical systems for building and infrastructure, or a consulting engineering firm. So a lot of people respond to this and they're like, oh, if you're entry level, why would you start your own consultancy? Well, that's not what consulting is. Consulting is like there's consulting firms that they do consulting, and there's entry level engineers that work for those firms. The company that I work for has a engineering consulting arm. That is what it's called. A consultancy is not just an individual person that's retired or has their own business and has been experienced for a long time. A consultancy can also be a firm, and they have employees that work for the firm that do the consulting. So it's not that limited. Not that limited. So here's what I'll have to say about this. And I commented on this post and I'll comment again. So I work in consulting, and I'd say that there is good money here. I have friends that work in tech, and there's good money there. But when it all comes down to it, you make more money the same way that people have always made more money. Are you willing to bounce around a little bit from company to company? And how high quality is your output so that you can get raises and bounce around up? And that's, in my opinion, influenced by how much you like what you do, and also your work ethic, but how much you like what you do will be relayed in the quality of work you do. So I would say you can make a lot of money in both. Is one more lucrative than the other? I'm sure that it really just depends on when and where. Like, if we go into a recession, are all those tech companies going to have the same resources that they had beforehand versus like a consulting company that's taking care of critical infrastructure? I don't know. The point is that pick a culture that you like the best and then just kick butt. You know, if you're not satisfied with how you're paid, ask for more money. And if you don't get more money, go somewhere that will give you more if that's what's most important to you. And if you bounce around enough and you do a really good job at what you do, then you'll make equally as good money in either industry. Now, you know, tech currently, a lot of tech people, especially working in software, you know, a lot of them work remote or have a little bit more work-life balances or have a little bit more lucrative benefits packages than maybe some of the consulting firms. But some of the consulting firms are in a position where they can offer per diem, or they can offer TLA, and there's other ways you can make money, and you can kind of travel the world in different ways by going to different job sites instead of working remotely. And if maybe you have more eligibility for overtime. It really just kind of depends on the company that you're working for and on the project and the things that you're doing. So I think that you can make a very lucrative career, and I know people that have been very successful in both consulting and tech. So I just say pick the one that you're most interested in, and then your quality of life will be a lot better. So that's my recommendation to you. I wouldn't really try to follow the money. I'd follow the passion, and where you follow the passion between those two, as an engineer, the money will come. And I know that's really cliche, but it will come. And if it doesn't come, then there's ways that you can make it come within the industry that you choose. So I wish you best of luck. Anyways, that was the latest episode of the Engineering Success Podcast. My name is Daniel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share with your friends, and I will catch up with you guys in the next episode. And maybe I'll be married by then. We'll see. Bye now. I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. My thoughts get complicated. I cannot explain in lameness. Never losing focus because I ain't chasing payments. Still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries. Thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify. They put me on the station.